Oh yeah. Welcome and welcome back to You Bleeping Nerds, UBN. I'm your host, Aaron, here hosting here at UBN, the program where we break down, review, and flat out just kind of nerd out over, to me, all the hottest stuff that's out there. Also a little nerd news. We tell you what's going on out there. Basically, we're here to tell you what's cool here at UBN. Today's episode, we're going to break down an anime, one of my favorite shows right now, Leveling. Episode 20, Looking Up was tiring me out. Oops, sorry about that. Is the name of the episode. Here on February 24th, 2025. We're going to break down the episode. But before we get into the episode, right now on UBN, we do 2 podcasts a week, Monday and Friday. On Mondays right now, we are, like I said, we're covering Solo Leveling. On Friday, check us out as we give you the breakdown of Invincible. That's season 3, episode 6. You know what I mean? So tune in for that. I love that show. I've always loved that show. Man, I love that show. Pretty much from episode 1, I've been hooked. Season 2 was a little slow. Not that bad. It was like a B-. But, tune in on us for Friday while we break that down. And, hit us up on our socials. You Bleeping Nerds on, that's on X. Zitter, Twitter, Xer, whatever the fuck they're calling it over there now. But yeah, we're on Twitter. We have a, You Bleeping Nerds Reddit as well. Tap in with us over there and see what we doing. Be posting this episode. We posted a bunch of stuff to our social. So, follow us, like us, you know what I mean? Tap in with us. We're happy to have you here. We nerd out on this podcast. That's why we're here. We're here because we love it. You Bleeping Nerds. We love what we do. We love what we watch. And we're here to cover it for you. So we're going to get into this episode. Looking Up was tiring me out. Before I even get into it, much better opening and ending music. Definitely better opening and ending music this season. I know what Tomorrow Today or Today Tomorrow or whatever the hell the band's name, the K-pop band is real popular over there. I seen the Reese's Puff cereal they be having, so I ain't trying to throw shade too, because the people get real mad when you talk about their bands. They love the boys over there. Shout out to BTS. They love the boys over there. But wasn't really feeling it. Let's get it. Yeah, I wasn't feeling it last season. Sorry, guys. I wasn't feeling it so much better this season. And the ending is fire. The ending is fire. I love that fire. But yeah, getting into the episode. The episode opens with Hunter-sung. He defeats what we come to find out is the demon monarch princess Ezel, or demon noble princess Ezel of the Radiru family. She's very insistent that her name is Radiru, not Radisu. Bud, not buddy. No, she's very much insisted on that, get her name right. But he first part to come in, he defeats her. Pretty much light work. He's one of the most overpowered characters you're gonna see. He's very much like, he's the protagonist. He's your character in the game. Super duper overpowered. But that's kind of a feature in isekai, right? All this has to work because he's just like, solo leveling these dungeons that take whole organizations. Like super powered, S ranks and A ranks to do it, and he's just out here, by himself, just bodying stuff. So he has to be kind of overpowered to do so. But anyway, he after she tries him one more time, he yokes her up. She gives up. He starts interrogating her for information, and he wants to know where the other floor permits are. So after that, he begins to interrogate her about the system, asking her about the voices in the head, the commands that he's curious. Does she get them too? This is a callback to a conversation that he had with I think they were the Ice Elves at a different gate, where they were it told them that, like, we hear commands in our head that says kill all humans. Any humans we come on, the command in our head says kill them all. And ever since then, he's been curious, like talking to all the monsters, like, do you guys, the ones who can talk, usually like the demons and the elves, the higher intelligence ones, do you hear, voices in your head giving you commands? What does it sound like? What is it telling you? And this is, I think, the second instance outside of the ice elves where she does receive orders, and it was to prepare for war. He continues to interrogate her about that, and it seems like a program takes over her. And seems to be giving out, the history of preparing for war, where they were in the demon world and things like that. And then it shuts her off, makes her pass out, making her incapable of, giving out any more information. And this is one of the elements of the story so far that I really liked. Is the the mystery thread throughout it, with Song Jin-woo trying to figure out who, what the actual system is, its connection to the gates and all the monsters. It seems to be a parallel world that's involved in this, and like the gates seem to be some type of bridge or portal or something, and it definitely seems to be it's being ran by something. So that's something that's a mystery thread that I am enjoying. I'm interested to look to see where that goes and what's really going on. It's a call back to the mystery dude who just kind of appears, they found in one of the gates, I think. And they don't know how long he had been there. They don't know how long he had been down there in the gate and how he'd been surviving. And he was the one who beat that S rank, who was looking for a Hunter Song. When he broke himself out of the hospital, that all seems to be connected. So that's a nice element of the story. Yeah, I'm looking forward to see how that fleshes itself out some more. But, moving on in the story, after the program shuts her off, they begin to proceed to her family to go talk to her father, because that's, to see if he can get the permit to move on. So that's the A story that they have right now. Pretty basic continuation from last episode. He pretty much just pulled up and beat the shit out of them in the previous episode. And now, they're going to go to her family to get the permit. So, and probably get some more information too, if they can. But, the B story, meanwhile, while this is happening, the Hunter Association, which, just like Hunter x Hunter, that's what they are. Like the Hunter Association is dealing with an incident, a dungeon break. Pretty much what it is. They're dealing with a dungeon break on Jeju Island. These monstrous, murderous ants killed hundreds of people, several hunters. I think they killed, they even killed a B rank. We took in A rank hunter in order to come in and to defeat the ants. So it's a real problem because there's a lot of them. There's thousands of ants, that can fight A ranks. So that's a real problem now that there's a dungeon break. And they are, organizing. Basically, they call for an emergency call out to other organizations, other countries. They put out an alert. And there's going to be a raid on Jeju Island. So it's going to set up, this is a major event, it seems. It seems like they're going to set up this raid on this island, in order to defeat the boss of the dungeon, close the gate and all that, stop the dungeon break, keep more people from getting killed by the giant ants. So, we see the chairman of the association talking to, his underlings, letting them know that's what we're doing, putting out the alert. Moving on from that point, which, it seems like it's going to set up a major event, they've been talking about it for a while. Jeju Island, a location that showed up at other points in the season that's been mentioned. There's been previous raids there. So people have some experience, like Chahe or Hunter Cha. I'll just call her. I think she on the previous raid. I think she was a part of that mission. So, but looking, going back down on the rundown. After they're discussing Jeju Island. So after the emergency raid on Jeju Island, we cut back to Jinwoo, Hunter Song going back to meet Ezra's family. She they're going to meet her family. Her father is like, "What on earth have you done? Like, what is this monster, this absolute monster you have brought into my house, girl? Are you out of your mind?" Like, which I think is interesting, right? Like, she can't really see the shadow, the shadow beings inside of him, but he can. So, it maybe shows a level of, mage ability, sorcery ability that she may not have. That, detection ability that but anyway, moving on. He basically says, like, look, me and your girl have a deal. You give me the permit. She comes with me, tells me where all the other permits, and then I don't have to kill, everybody. He's very polite about it. But I mean, it's real implication that it's just like, yeah, if you don't, I'm just gonna like murder you. So obviously his daddy complies because like he pulled up with like monsters in his coat. So, his daddy complies, he gets the permit. He takes Ezel with her. At this point is where like she becomes a little bit of a groupie, because after he, gets to the floor, he's about to go to the other floors. He's like, all right, man, we're cool. The rest of this is going to be dangerous. You're just, you just tell me where, who and what I need to deal with. And she was like, nah, daddy, I'm rolling with you. Nah, daddy, I'm rolling with you. I'm a ride or die. You know what I'm saying? So, good job. Like Hunter, so like Sung Ji-woo has gone from, my man has gone from like being bodied by like goblins to like hunter demon princess groupies. Like my man has really come up in the world, like that system, like it's really done a lot for him. Like, like it kind of reminds me like P90X back in the day. Like it's like P90X for Dungeon Raiders, to where it's just like my dude is definitely on cycle 3 right now. Like he is absolutely reaping the benefits. But no, he gets the permit. He goes, he just bodies floors of demons. You know what I'm saying? Like he just bodies whole floors of them. One thing I will say, I don't know if I love the way they yada the way he goes through the floors. Like he went through like, I don't know, what is it, like 10 floors or whatever. And none of those floors seem to like be of any kind of consequence. I don't think he even collected any souls from it. He just absolutely obliterates all these floors. They pretty much yada rush cut it till they get to floor 100. To that is where, of course, the dungeon boss is in this realm. My boy Baron, the demon monarch, and my dude is a motherfucking badass. Baron is sensational. Like this guy, like first off, he pulls up on like this all white wyvern. That's like, this nigga got like a white dragon, you know what I mean, with like gold saddle and like a giant like energy sword and shit. Like you, first off, you a badass. You're a badass when like you pull up and Jinwoo's kind of like, okay, like, because like he's a beast at this point. Like He's just going around slaying folks for a while. So like, when you pull up on him and he was looking at his dragon like, oh, he got a dragon? Okay, I see. All right. Like you knew he was hating because during the fight, like he had Idris like cut his head off. Like the name of the episode, like looking up at you was to get tired. Like that's like now that I think about it, that's some hater ass shit. Like Jinwoo was hating a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if later Jinwoo like is I understand there's a light novel. So if you read the light novel, don't chime in and be like, well, actually, look, man, you read the book. We haven't, okay? This is an anime only show right now, okay? Give me some time. Anyway, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if later he pulled up it is one of his own white dragon. You know what I'm saying? Or like he took Byron's soul. I don't know if he took the Wyvern soul on top of it. So like I don't know. But yeah, no. Goes into the fight with Byron. Byron's a badass. He shows up, but before we get into that, we end up having to cut back to this is the preparation for the raid on Jeju Island. We go back to the Hunters Guild with Hunter Cha and the leader of the Hunters Guild. And they're sitting there talking about how, Japan, obviously, because of the proximity of this breakout, obviously we're set in Korea. Because of the proximity of where we are, Japan's at risk, so they're going to be a part of the fighting force. Japan has a much larger and much stronger hunter force, toting, I think they said 11 S ranks in total. So, much bigger guild, very powerful guild. The leader of their largest guild, Drawn Sword, showed up, and his translator, they show up to discuss it and to discuss the plan, which is because of the amounts of powerful hunters that the Japanese forces have and the nature of the ants tend to flock towards more powerful hunters, sources of magic, at least, that's, and obviously that's sources of your magic, typically are an indicator of how strong of a hunter you are. So, they're going to flock towards more powerful sources, i.e. the hunters. So we're going to use them to draw them away from the queen, spread them out, distract them for a little while. And then the Korean team and their, whatever strike force they put together, their job is going to go in and to defeat the queen ant, the boss mama ant, and effectively putting into the dungeon, because they can't make any more ants, and the rest of the ants will die very quickly because of the life cycle of the ants are very short. So that's generally the plan. They laid it out for us all there. I like that they laid out the plan. I do. I like that they laid out the plan. I like that it's a coherent plan. It's not like yada yada. Obviously something's gonna go wrong and everybody's gonna die. Obviously that's going to happen. But I enjoy that. I thought that was good writing there, good planning there. So no, cutting back, and then the fight with Byron starts. And boy, how does it start? It's, obviously Jinwoo summons his demons. He's Shadow Monarch now. So he summoned his hordes, his shadow hordes. Byron also, he summons a bunch of portals to summon his demon hordes, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's squad on squad. We squadding up. You know what I'm saying? All our fighters are in the ring. And immediately you see Byron open up with a huge, awesome, like beam to the sky that opens up the all the clouds and creates a giant AoE attack. Man, it was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Definitely a spectacle. Definitely caught my eye, made my heart jump a little bit when I saw it. Each time I saw it, honestly. It was fantastic. Flat out fantastic. But yeah, so, Byron opens with that. Obliterates all of Jinwoo's hordes. Not all of them, Tank and Tusk and Idrid, obviously his generals live, but, his smaller forces, the bears and all the little minions around them, they all kind of die, which really takes a hit to his mana. And he notes this, talking about like, that's a problem that he has an attack that can destroy that many of my hordes, because that's going to deplete my mana, and I need my hordes to fight his hordes. So he sees a troubling issue right away. And that's something about solo leveling I want to say, is that they do a great job with the fighting system. In my opinion, I think they do a great job with the fighting system, where it's consistent. Obviously they cheat, but like it's rather consistent, to where like he, in fights where like when any fight where his hordes are being obliterated by AoE attacks, it depletes his mana, right? And it creates a real problem for him that he has to solve. And like these monsters that are fighting are stronger and stronger. Like I'd say Baron is definitely an S rank monster at this point, right? Like Baron, I mean, he is incredibly powerful. He's an S rank monster. And the way he was able to push Jinwoo with the way they match up, right? Like he tried to attack Baron directly once he saw the AoE, because he didn't want his mana to get depleted, and he wasn't able to really best him in combat. He saw through his stealth, which is a problem, because that was his core physical set before he had the job change. That was his core physical set. So he needs to recalculate. Baron counterattacks with the homing attack, which is like really strong and really, really cool, by the way. Like Baron was really awesome, right? Pulling up on a fucking dragon and shit. Like he was so fucking dope. like he was really cool. He only, he shined for one episode, but boy, did this dude shine. But yeah, he has to, Jinwoo, he has to retreat, and kind of recoup and try to figure out like how, his approach here, because he, his sneak attack, his distract and sneak attack tactic didn't work on Baron, right? And, he calls on Tusk, he calls on Idrid and Tank to assist him, help him escape the homing attack that was going to, probably do some real damage to him. Probably not kill him, but do some damage to him. Idrid beheads the Wyron with like a great throw from the sword. Like, great fucking throw. Man, it was a good fucking throw. Nice and clean too. Nice animation there. You know what I mean? So, no, definitely a great, definitely a great scene there. Tank in Tusk protecting him from the beam, getting him out of there, right? Because one thing I think is interesting is that because he's an assassin build, his defenses actually aren't that high. He does take damage, right? So that's one reason why he's not too OP to me. That's one reason why he's not too OP to me, because like he does have weaknesses, right? Obviously he has the plot armor, but he does have like weaknesses, and like when you see them in the fights, they manifest themselves, and I think that's good attention to detail. That's a good, like I said, I like the commitment to the fighting system, that like once all of his soldiers were defeated, once all, even his generals were damaged and he was out of mana, he couldn't replenish any of them. Now he's got to fight him one-on-one, and it's not going well. It's a brawler. Actually, before that, I do want to talk about, I wonder, is it a like, when, because Baron, he pulled out his double swords once his minions were gone, and I'm thinking like, damn, what happened to Baron's demons? Like maybe we should just jump this dude. Like I don't understand like why he didn't want to jump this dude, but you saw Idrid did that. Like I don't know if it's a part of the system and part of the commands in their head to like, once that scenario presents itself, or is it like a noble thing? He's a demon king, so right, he's a noble. So like, is he just trying to like, match his opponent? Like I don't know. It's weird to me. It's weird to me. Where that always seems to happen, because like it seems like he'd be kind of screwed in this situation if he doesn't try to fight him hand to hand, right? Like if he goes back to range AoE attacks, he can't. I mean, that homing attack, right? Like if he goes back to that, he can't really dodge it. He doesn't have his minions to help him get out of that. I don't know. That part was that's one little part of criticism for me. I don't know how I felt about that, but yeah, no. The fight ends up moving hand to hand. A lot of flash and slash and quick animation. I looked really closer. I even stopped it, and it's there's a lot of quick movements and stuff like that. So shout out to them. That fight was really cool. Once it moved to hand, and eventually Jinwoo gets the upper hand on him. Talks about how he invested all those skill points from the system into his strength, and Hand of the Ruler, which I forget what that ability does, exactly what it is, but in this situation it came in real handy. In that particular situation, he ends up ripping off Baran's arms, and stuff like that, and cool little ending flurry when Baran tries to beam from his mouth, and he hits, Jinwoo hits him with an uppercut, and again we see the beam parts the cloud again. Again, beautiful action animation in this episode. Beautiful action animation in this episode, in my opinion. It was just fun to watch, right? Solo leveling run fun to watch. The fight scenes are always just so satisfying to watch, and this episode was no different. So shout out to them for that. Like, they just made good fights, man. They made good fights in this show. But yeah, he goes on to defeat Baran. Goes on, defeats him, uppercuts him, blows his head off. We jump, we see it cuts to, him seeing they collected the soul, he completed the quest, the experience, yada, 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 He turns and tells the Ridisu girl, I'm doing what he did, the Ridiru girl, goes and tells her, hey man, your family's on top now, boom, episode ends, so no, that's it. That's it for that episode. Final thoughts. Good episode. Fun, I think that episode accomplished a lot. I think it was overall entertaining. Again, you saw cool fight against Baran. You saw, cool animation. It was satisfying on that front too. Particularly at the end, it definitely crescendoed at the end. And I think it did a good job at the same time, just moving the story along, setting up for this operation on Jeonju Island. He's defeated for Baran. He should have everything he needs for the elixir of life. So he's going to save his mom. And then, we are, going to move on. He's probably going to be on the Jeonju Island, I would imagine, because all the S-rank hunters in the country have been called, and he's one of those now, officially. So now it's his job. So he's gonna be a part of that. So, I'm looking forward to that. But good solid episode. I'm looking forward to it next Saturday for it to come in. Is it my favorite anime in the world right now? No, definitely not. But I think it's just enjoyable. It's just very enjoyable. And love that ending. Oh man, it's so sick. The ending theme song, super, super sick. So no, I shout out to them again. I'm enjoying season 2. I think it's been good. I'm looking forward to the Jeonju Island operation. And I think overall it's been a good time. So, shout out to them, and thank you guys for another episode of You Bleepin' Nerd, another episode breakdown of one of these cool shows we like to nerd out on us. Right now, twice a week, we're coming at you with an episode breakdown. Right now, Monday, we are covering Solo Leveling, and Fridays we're going to be covering Invincible. So come check out with us on Friday. Look out for that podcast on Friday on Invincible, season 3, episode 6. My dude Cecil, up to filthy things, of course. That's why he's my favorite. And, things getting real with the Viltrumites. But again, you have been listening to You Bleepin' Nerds. with another episode breakdown. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and I'll see you guys later this week. It's your boy A. I'll talk to you next time. Peace.